everyone, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening, and today I got to do a couple of my least favorite things to do. I got a bunch of gardening gear in, and someone brought in 3 sets of hedgers, but I'm going to show you how I like to do these. I'm also going to show you, as I talked about earlier this week, how amazing dental abrasives are, and I'm going to show you the quick way to clean these up, and then I'm going to show you my slower way. Both are great. One's using a chemical, but the other one's using dental abrasives. So, and then I'm going to show you how I like to sharpen hedgers, and how I like to do these, believe it or not, is on the scissor sharpener, the twice as sharp with a CBN wheel. They come out really fantastic. So let me give you a good look at these. I mean, you can see these are all rusty. They do not look good. They need cleaning. They need to get all this rust off. And this is not uncommon for stuff coming in. And here's another set here. And same thing. These are rusty too, but not as bad. And then there's one set here that's relatively clean. A pair of Fiskars. And these are in a little better shape. These are probably the newest ones that they own there. So let's get started with the really bad rusty ones, and I'm going to show you the quick method for getting this rust off, and really inexpensive. So in my shop, I have it set up that my table on the one end, which is this one here, has my jewelry buffers, my Fordham tools, and a big giant scoop that's hooked to a vacuum system. And this is where I like to do my messy work. So this is where things are polished and cleaned. And if I need to do something fast to get rust off, what I like to do is use cheap Chinese dental abrasives. Now, this is where I don't use my more expensive Dededco ones. This is where I like to use inexpensive ones. And I'm going to show you those right there. So on this little Dremel tool, I have some very inexpensive radial discs. And these are 80 grit. And these are just like a Chinese knockoff brand. But let me show you how great these are for cleaning off rust. So to answer another question that someone brought up earlier today, someone asked, what did these dental radial discs replace for me? And mostly they replaced, I used to use these little like Scotch-Brite buffs a lot. And I still have tons of them. And there are still times that they're really useful. But the downside of these is they wear out fast. And if I was to try and clean up this garden tool with this, I would probably go through 4 or 5 of these. And they also throw stuff all over the shop, where these literally don't throw anything around the shop, and they last a really, really long time, way longer than Scotch-Brite type abrasives. Okay, so I'm putting on my protective gear. I'm going to have a mask and a face shield. Whenever I clean rusty stuff, I always wear protective gear. I just don't risk it. So it's going to be a little noisy here. So I always like to show you guys some useful things just to have around your shop too. And this is a little tiny thing, but man, has it saved my butt many times. And these are really inexpensive. You can get them at Harbor Freight. And, you know, I've seen them other places too. I think I've got them on Amazon. If I can find a link to them, I will. I know for sure you can get them from Harbor Freight. but they're just little magnetic dishes. So when you are taking things apart that have a bunch of parts, it's nice to throw them in these little magnetic dishes so that they don't go flying around the shop. And they have saved me many, many times. So much so that I have a few of them all around the shop. When I take pruners and hedgers and things apart, I always throw the parts in these little magnetic dishes. Because inevitably, if you bang something, or if you had them just in a regular bowl or container and you knock it off the table, they go flying all over the place. And these things have saved me a lot of headaches, and they're worth every penny. They're only a few dollars, but I love them. They just have a big magnet on the bottom, and I use those all the time. Another thing you're going to want if you're doing garden tools is little wrenches like this. You can see I keep mine on magnets just to keep it easily accessible. So they're right under my downdraft table. But the one that you're going to really need a bunch of, and you'll see I have a whole bunch of number 10s. A lot of gardening, especially when you're doing little pruners, for some reason they have a lot of number 10 metric size screws on them. You're going to want everything, but if you looked here, I have like 1, 2, 3, I think there's one over here, 4. I got 4 or more number 10s. And even in this thing, there might be a number 10, just because sometimes you need one on both sides to get certain things apart. So having a couple extra number 10 wrenches, and I love these little ratchet wrenches, are fantastic, are a lifesaver, and that's worth having in your shop too. So you can see here the dental abrasives did a really great job of knocking a lot of that rust off. And another important thing to tell your customers about and talk to them about is just how important it is just to, if they would just spray their landscaping gear when they're done with a little WD-40 and wipe it off. Most of this junk that you get in here, this black stuff, is plant material. And then they, since they don't clean it off, it rusts and it just builds up. But you'll be amazed at how great these dental abrasives will rip through even that plant material and the rust to get you back to the bare metal. Now, let me show you my other favorite way of doing it, that when I have more time or if I'm not in a rush, my favorite thing is to use some stuff called evapor rust. And you'll see back here behind my lawnmower sharpener there, I have a couple jars, and that big jar is where I like to stick things like this. So I'm going to drop those hedge clippers right into that evapor rust and let that sit in there for a little while. Now, cleaning it off like I just did is still a good idea. Evapor rust will hold about, I think a gallon holds, 9 pounds of rust. But you can just keep using it and using it and using it over and over and over again until it stops working for you. Now, this is some fairly new evapor rust in there. And if you look to the one to the right that's really yellow, that's even newer. But it eventually turns, it starts looking like dark tea. But it's not a bad idea if you have something super rusty like what I just had, to knock it off as much rust as you can first, just to get as much mileage out of your evapor rust, if you are going to use both like I like to do. So I'm still going to throw this into some evapor rust, and I'll show you what that looks like afterwards. A lot of times the rust turns like a black color. It converts it to carbon, and then you can knock that off with a buffer if you want. It comes out nice and shiny, or you can leave it. Either one. But the good thing is it's no longer rust that's going to corrode that tool. So here's the evapor rust. Just an amazing product, and I always like to thank people when it's people that gave me the idea. I've mentioned you guys many times before, the Guild of Professional Sharpeners. It was guys in the guild that told me about evapor rust, and that's why I started using it several months ago, and I absolutely love it. I have a small barber's shop container there that you can see that I put small parts in, and that makes it real easy for retrieving them. Then I have this big container to put larger stuff in, and I'm actually planning on building a big one out of PVC pipe to drop lawnmower blades in. But I really, really like Evapo-Rust. It's great stuff. So I'm going to leave these in there for probably about 8 minutes or so. And the other way that you can really get some great use out of Evapo-Rust, and I'll just show you it, because I have two ultrasonic cleaners over here, and this one here is full of Evapo-Rust. You'll see that's a little darker in there, how I told you it looks like tea eventually. And I will throw, this is what I throw pruners in when they come in looking terrible. I a lot of times just toss them right into the Evapo-Rust. And then this one is just a degreaser. And I do actually have a knife in here that came in that was just filthy, that someone wants me to sharpen. And it really needed just to be cleaned out. It had all kinds of pocket lint and stuff in there. There it is. So I'll be checking on that in a little bit. It even had a little rust on it, so that might even go into some Evapo-Rust later. So sometimes, having options there is not a bad idea either. Okay, so here's the hedger, and you can see all that black. Now, watch how easy that comes off. I mean, it just comes right off. Yeah. So a lot of times after I've had them in there, I'll just quickly give it a final go over with a dental abrasive, and this is when they really start to look like they're brand new. Now these were so rusty, there's even a couple spots still. So I have also sometimes when I'll get garden tools in, sometimes if they're really bad, I'll just leave them in it overnight, and that tends to get everything. But in general, it takes usually around 8 minutes to get the majority of the gunk off. And like I said, this is optional. I guarantee there's sharpeners out there that would probably not do this at all. This is how I choose to do it. I always clean up the gear. I like to return people's stuff to them looking really great. So this is just a process that I use. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it. But I just don't like... I don't like sharpening rusty stuff. One reason is I don't want the rust getting into my wheels and CBN wheels and stuff. But I also for me, it just bothers me to return something rusty. I like to return it looking really great. And since this doesn't take much to do, I like to clean it up. And I've worked it into my pricing. So people know, that if they bring in something super rusty, they're going to be charged for the cleanup of it. So it's just part of my pricing. So I have my twice as sharp setup put into position to start doing these hedgers. Now, one thing that you want to do before you do your hedger is check to see if you have enough space. So you can see I wouldn't be able to hit the tip here, so I'm going to want to adjust where I'm clamped in. So I usually do this first to make sure I'm going to be able to get all the way down to the tip, because these are pretty long. But it looks like right here will be good. So I always like to check and go, oh, how far do I have to go? Now, I know from doing so many of these and this style that 30 degrees is an angle that I really like. So I have mine set for 30 degrees. But you can do the regular Sharpie trick if you're not sure. Mark your blade with a Sharpie, move your wheel a little bit, see where it takes it off of, and you can adjust your blade. For me, I like doing hedgers at 30 degrees, so that's what I'm going to cut these at. So I still have a ways to go. I can still see some old edge there. So it's going to take a couple more cuts, and I actually could be cutting back here too. So I am seeing there's blade back here. So I'm going to redo this and do 2 cuts there to even that out, and then continue cutting. The main thing here is also make sure you support it Twice as Sharp does sell an actual supported arm that's longer for mower blades, which would probably be great for this. But I've never had a problem with the standard arm. Has worked for me just fine. And for those of you who've never seen this piece of gear before, mine's a little bit modified because I have a CBN wheel from Woodturner's Wonders on here, which is really great because CBN wheels run cool and they don't shrink in size, so I never have to worry about changing out and going to put a new aluminum oxide wheel on there, and they just cut better and just all around nicer. This is my general sharpener for regular household scissors and things. I have a separate one that I use for salon and barber shields. And that's looking really nice there. So now I'm definitely all the way down, and we got a really nice new edge there. So now I'm going to hone it. So honing, I go to the other side. I might have to make some adjustments to my twice as sharp machine here because of the size here. Yeah, just going to angle that a little bit. I have a little clamp down here that's also holding this in place. That should do it for that one. And then I'm going to treat this the same way I would treat a pair of scissors. After I assemble them together, I'm going to pull it apart to pull the burr forward, and then I will cut the burr off itself with just using the hedgers. So I'm going to grab my other blade, and same thing here, just the whole process all over again. Now this one doesn't have the branch cutting part in it, so I can just go straight all the way across here. And I'll do the same thing again, just double check to make sure that I have enough space to reach the tip. And I have to move this a little bit, and that should do it right there. I'm not feeling a burr yet, so I'm going to take a couple more cuts at that. I want to feel a burr on this back side. Another tip is if you keep your eye here too, you'll actually see when that burr starts to raise. A lot of times there's a little old edge there that just needs to go. And then once it's gone, it gets this like nice, perfect straight edge that you see. I'm going to do just one more cut. I think will do it. Not uncommon for hedgers that have been old and used a lot to really need quite a few passes. Alrighty, so now what I'm going to do is I will put these back together. I'm going to put their screw in, and I'm going to do just like I do with scissors. I want to make sure that the very first thing I do is pull them apart this way to pull the burr out, and then I will start cutting with them a bit, and that'll cut the burr off itself. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. The first time, so I put them back together, and now I'm going to open them, and I want to make sure there's pressure this way, and that's just to pull that burr long ways. And then I'm going to cut a few times with them. And then what I like to do to test mine, I know if they're cutting paper, that these are in great shape. So let's see how they do. And they just cut beautifully right through that piece of paper. Now that's a really sharp pair of hedgers. So here's the finished hedgers. And thank you to those of you who stuck it out to the end and watched this full video. I hope you all got something out of it. I will leave affiliate links to all the products and things mentioned in this video in the description of the YouTube video. And once again, thank you to those of you who are kind enough to purchase through affiliate links that I post. I will also leave a link to Woodturner's Wonders, where you can get a CBN wheel for your Taz if you're interested. I also wanted to mention, some people are probably wondering why I do gardening gear when I hate it so much. And that's just because almost everybody that brings in gardening gear ends up coming back with knives and other stuff. So that's why I mostly do it and offer it to my customers.